Hi guys, in this video we're going to be answering a question from Joy. And as always, if you do have any questions yourself about love, about life, feel free to comment them below in the comment section because honestly that's what I'm here for. I'm really here as a wealth of knowledge, as a deep understanding, as a mirror for people. So if you find these videos useful, you're going to find asking a question or even working with me one-on-one a hell of a lot more useful than just watching other people's videos. So really, I want to invite you to feel that. So this video's question is by a girl called Joy. And Joy asks, what to do when your guy loses his job and he feels like a failure? He can't even take me out anymore and it's taking its toll on him. And not all the time, but sometimes on us. Although he tries really hard as I do to make our date night special, but there's only so much you can do when no money and depression hits hard with another rejection notice. Man, that was exhausting to read, but let's break this down because I want to answer your question. I'm going to really take a look at all the key parts of what you've really said here. And when you have a look at this, when you understand really the pretense of the questions that you're asking here, because really I could answer your question, but I'm going to be answering a question in a way that does not really help. So really taking a look at the deeper levels of what you're talking about will really show to light what the pretense is, what your preconceived ideas are. And when we take a look at it this way, it can be a hell of a lot more beneficial and you'll really see results in how it actually goes. So the first thing you say is, what to do when your guy loses his job and he feels like a failure? Well, look, truth be told, it's not your job to make him not feel like a failure. In fact, if you do anything to make him feel better, in any sense, that will only be momentary. The real thing is the best thing you can do is just be a good example. Be a good example of someone who does not look at failure and realize, oh my God, something's wrong with me. Be a good example of what confidence feels like. Be a good example of what really success feels like. Because truth be told, if you try and change someone, if you try and help someone through a situation where they go, I'm not feeling like failure anymore, it will truly only be momentary. Because you're trying to force some values that he's not there yet. Maybe he needs to feel like a failure so he can build himself back up again. But if you think that you need to do something to make him feel less like a failure, then he doesn't get that bonus. He doesn't get that grounding resonance to build himself back up. Because that's what happens. When people get knocked down, that's an opportunity for themselves to build themselves back up. For example, in my own life, some people, I have had the benefit of having really some amazing support people in my life. But honestly, when I've been in my most darkest place, the best thing for me was for me to bring myself out of it. Any help, any benefit, any things like that. That's why often having a coach is really good because they lead you to the right places where you need to bring that out in yourself. But when you try and force someone to say, what can I do to really make him not feel like a failure? Well, guess what? He fucking feels like a failure. That's where he's at. That's probably what he needs to do. And that's where he led himself. That he needs to see the consequence of his own actions. But now we then take it a little bit further because now it's starting to affect your relationship, which is why you want to have a divine intervention, right? But here's going to be the thing, right? The place in which you're asking these questions doesn't necessarily really support them. So we're going to be asking some new questions, which are really going to see, you're going to see it's going to be very different and the answers are going to be different. Because you can always ask, how do I be less shit? And there's going to be a number of reasons. Take drugs. But you say, how do I feel good? How do I feel life in the world? And the answers that you get because we ask different questions are very different. So let's go through the rest of your question. He can't even take me out anymore and it's taking a toll on him. Well, that's what you think. You got to get creative with your dates. If you don't have money, there are so many things that a date is. A date is just two people together. Now, you might think, he can't take me out anymore. Can you take him out? There is a number of things here that I'm really picking up, that it's his responsibility to take you out. It's not his responsibility at all. In fact, when he starts failing at dating you, as well as failing at work, well, that's just going to make it a hell of a lot worse. So we have to start realizing that, one, it's not his job to take you out. It's his fucking privilege. In the same way that it's not your job to take him out, it's your privilege. It's his job to look after himself. It's your job to look after yourself. And together you create something amazing. But when you say he can't take me out anymore, it's taking a toll on him, that's his fucking mental space. If he can't take you out anymore and it's taking a toll on him, those are two mutually exclusive things. He doesn't have money to take you out, which means, let's get really to the point, it means he does not have money, so he can't do things that require money, but he can still take you out. But if he thinks money and taking you out are connected, then that's the key. So we have to realize that you don't need money to go on dates. Sure, money is like a power. And having more money is a power. But even in my own life, even in people, when I'm coaching people with their relationship with money, we then realize that when you are your poorest, do you realize that you are the richest person in the fucking world? Because you realize that your value does not link to money. That if he thinks that, and if you think that the value that you share in someone's life is related to money, then you're completely wrong. But wealth will come into your life when you realize that your value and the power that you have is not linked to money. So it's taking a toll on him. It's because then he thinks that lack of money means something about him. It's not. That's like saying, I don't have enough shoes. I'm a bad human being. It takes me 10 seconds to put on my pants. I'm a bad human being. I only have 2 hands. I'm a bad human being. The condition in which you judge yourself as a bad human being has got nothing to do with it. But you then judge it because cause and effect. We've been taught to believe that these things happen and that things happens as a result. But truth be told, the two have nothing. They make us feel that way, but you have the choice to decide if it makes you feel that way. So therefore, you can then decide, hey, I am going to be rich, I'm going to be wealthy, despite what's happening. I'm going to be powerful, despite what's happening. You have a choice. He has a choice. And by you being a good example of someone who has a choice, that you can find the benefit and the bonus in whatever is happening, you will then show him as a result through osmosis, through your own life. But if you think he's a failure, I've got to help him, that you're positioning him and you're repositioning him as a failure. No wonder he feels like a failure. His job, and then you're adding extra effort and extra pressure. Although he tries really hard, as I do, to make our date night special, great. He tries hard. That's all anyone ever wants. But there's only so much you can do when money and depression hits hard. Sometimes it's deep introspection. Sometimes we need to take a giant step back so we can take 100 steps forward. And you know what? I often find that sometimes people mislabel depression. They mislabel depression as depression. And what it really is deep introspection. That maybe he needs to go into his shell in order to figure out another deeper level of who he is. Sometimes we quit our job. Sometimes we make ourselves get fired because we never wanted that job in the first place. And if you keep thinking that there are certain conditions for you to be happy and certain conditions for you to be happy in the relationship, then there will always be those conditions. But if you realize for what it is, that maybe he's just needing that deeper introspection, that that's just where he's at right now, you can support him. If he feels like a failure, if he feels depressed, support him. Because eventually, people wake up and they go, I'm tired of having no money. I'm tired of being depressed. Why? Because it's completed its loop. It's completed its cycle. But if you think he has to be anything than he is right now, and that you judge that as a failure, you're adding to his failure and you're adding to that deeper introspection. We attract these things in our life. We decide these things are in our life. We need these things in our life. If he lost his job to feel like a failure, maybe it was because he needed to feel like a failure, Sometimes we knock ourselves down intentionally so that way we can bring ourselves back up. And the best thing you can do right now, and anyone else who's in this situation, if you're watching this, the best thing you can always do is be a fucking example. Be what it's like. Be the beacon. Be the example of what it's like to be happy despite money, despite the situation, despite conditions. Because when you're in that mode, do other people feel that and they resonate from it? In fact, you will stop looking at him like a failure and you'll stop adding extra failure to him, and you will then say, hey, you're just hitting a downward spiral. It's all right. We've all had it. the sheer amount of positivity that you have will leak onto him, and maybe as a result, he'll probably get a job quicker. But you can't help him assuming he's a failure, and you can't help him getting sucked into the fact that he thinks he's a failure. Because when you are that, you are then adding to it, which is why I said that your question doesn't provide the best answer. So we have to ask a new question. How can you be a good example? How can you really help someone by being the best you can possibly be? So thank you so much for watching this video. If you did like this video, make sure to leave a like. If you want to work with me one-on-one, go to loveonmyterms.com. If you really felt like this was beneficial and you want to check out my 7-day self-love meditation course, go to 7daysselflovecourse.com. I love you. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I'll see you next week for the latest video. Bye-bye.